Hello, guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're doing a really special episode of a little interview that we're doing for Ancestor's Humankind Odyssey. So now we've got two of our people that have been working on the game at Panache Digital Studios. I'm really excited to get an interview done with these guys. So would you guys like to introduce yourselves? And Nick can start first if he likes.
Yeah, my name is Nicolas Cantin, and I was the art director on Ancestors. I'm with the team since the first day almost, so we're working on the project for 6 years. We are really happy about the release of Ancestors that we have done.
Yes, hi, my name is Marc-André Deblois. I'm a game designer at Panache, and just like Nick, I was present from the beginning when the studio was founded, and we are also happy to see people playing Ancestor and enjoying it. Yes.
So, how did you guys first get involved with Patrice and really starting to get the beginning of this game going and founding Panache and really starting the... What's the story behind the idea?
Was
he? Okay. To be honest, the very art of the game was all Patrice. He wanted to do a game about human evolution, and the first time he approached us with this idea, he already has the entire roadmap of the high level destination he wanted to reach with that game. So from that point, it was just a matter of developing each system, clarifying his vision. We did a lot of system development that we test on the pad, and from that we adjust iteration over iteration for almost 5 years.
Yeah, in the beginning it was really Pat and GF, the co-owner of the Panache company, and they were really about having the big idea about Ancestors. Everything was there, the roadmap, like Marc-André said, but also they wanted to start the company at the same time, the Panache company, Panache Digital Games. So we had kind of two things to do in the beginning, the game and the studio itself. So we started to help them visually to define like the identity of the studio, the identity of Ancestor itself. Designer came along, we had an engineer that came, and then we started the first prototype. At the same time, we were kind of entering our new studio and painting the walls. So it was a really an interesting time. We were maybe 10 guys in the beginning, and after that we had more girls and more people. And it was really a good way to start something because we were really close. We had a lot of ideas in the beginning, but the main idea of Ancestor itself, and it was a unique idea, I think, and it was really interesting to start to work on that and to develop what became the game. In the beginning, it was a little bit more episodic, and then more we advanced in the project and more it get bigger and bigger and bigger. And we were confident in our team to deliver something that was not a AAA size, but at least a AAA quality, and this is what we were aiming.
I think you definitely made it with the quality, because a lot of everyone that I've seen really enjoys the game, and I think you guys did a really good job on that. So, so a lot of building was going on then. You're just kind of building the game and the studio, just a lot of growing.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of hiring. Also, you have to, to hire people, and you have to convince them to join a small and new team. So it's really something about starting almost a small family, and everyone know each other. It's really important for the development of a game like that to know and what everything is happening in the studio, what everyone is doing. So all those elements add to this. The fact that we achieved to deliver a game like Ancestors.
Yeah, because you don't have the 600 plus people working on some of these real big AAA games like EA and companies like that.
Exactly. And we didn't also we didn't do a lot of outsource. We did some, especially for the sound, because we didn't add all the department in house. But frankly, we did almost everything within the studio.
That's pretty cool. So we got another question here. What other games did you look for inspiration in any aspects of the game? So what did you look for in terms of other games or other media in terms of inspiration for Ancestors? Like gameplay, anything?
For me, I know it's a different genre, but for me, the game, The Long Dark, was an inspiration. Not the game with the episodic adventure that they create after that, but the idea of having a world, and within this world, each system that are alive, and you can play it, both game Ancestors and The Long Dark, at your own speed. You can go whatever you want, and you create your own story as much as you progress toward the goal that you decide to give yourself. The experience that emerge from non-scripted game like our game in The Long Dark, I think they are very similar at that point, in the experience that we deliver to the user.
Yeah, I think that Zelda also on Switch had a big impact on the freedom we wanted to deliver on the game. I think in the beginning it was a little bit more narrative, more linear, and more we were advancing, more we were like trying those games, and like maybe it's something that can add a lot for the fun of the player, about exploration, about discovering himself, the things that will make him evolve. So on that thing, I think it was a good way, a good idea to follow that trail. I mean, so yeah, I think those kind of games that allow freedom to the player, and yeah, visually. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, I really agree with the point of like letting the player kind of figure out and take agency. I think that really made it fun, considering even with the science, different times when we discover, let's say, stone tools, we have evidence of stone tools being used by animals like Australopithecus. So like kind of also future-proofs the science of the game as well. Plus by making it really fun by having to really make you think about it.
And visually it was interesting because there's a lot of games that are set in jungles and elements like that, but they all kind of moderns. And they had a Far Cry game that were a bit more primitive, but it was not even as far as us. So one of the goals it was to avoid, for sure with technology we can have today, it's easy to have a beautiful jungle that will feel real. But it was our goal also, but one of the goal is, okay, it will be cool that if you see a screenshot of that jungle, a video of it, you will know that it's Ancestor. So that the jungle itself, even though we want all the technical aspect of a jungle, the god rays and all that things, we wanted the jungle and the savannah and all those locations to have an identity by itself and to have their own kind of, to be a character maybe. And so yeah, it was one of the main goals also to create something unique, even though we were creating a jungle. 10 million years ago, it was a little bit different from our research, but we wanted to make sure that also the people wanted, understand where they were. But 10 million years ago, the jungle was not that different. It was more that we had jungle in Paris or something like that. But so yeah, we create our own identity, and it's because we didn't want to do like a new Call of Duty or things like that. The goal was, yeah, there's a lot of beautiful games with jungles, but we wanted to be unique and different.
So you can look at it and see Ancestors, not just any random jungle.
Exactly.
And I think you did that pretty well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see another question. This game portrays evolution in a very, very interesting way. Like any other game, I don't think there's any other game that's portrayed like this. How did the real-world science of learning and researching of evolution and human evolution that affect the game through development? So what changes, kind of gameplay or visual changes did you make as you learned more about the game? I mean, the science.
At the beginning, after having done a lot of research, and Patrice having done also a lot of research, we did two things. We established a timetable of the uh, big milestone that humanity has reached based on scientific and evidence. And after that, I've created a sort of tech tree within the time lapse of minus 10 million years and minus 2 million years. I've done a lot of digging about what have we learned as a species during that time frame. And everything that you see in the game, the first stone tool called the Older One tool, were actually discovered during that time period. It's one of the reasons why we don't have fire, because fire was not there minus 2 million years ago. And starting from that, we had a first run of developing the character in the universe for almost 2 years, just to have the basic system present in the game. And after that, when was the time to create the RPG, which means, in fact, creating an evolution process for the player to experience. I realized that human biology, human psychology, human communication, all the skills that we have developed over that period of time already occur in a gamey way. Okay, so you learn to walk on 4 legs, and then by practicing, maybe reaching food higher on the trees, or trying to scare an enemy away, you experience the beginning of bipedalism. So human evolution was already set in a gamey way. We just try to create some big story to tell in our way about how could bipedalism could be achieved in the game. And it's almost the story of every branches of the RPG that we have put in the game. We have deconstruct what we have learned as a species and let the player experience it by trying it in the game. So, for instance, if you want your sense system to be more accurate, you have in the game to use it before you'll be able to hear things that are far away from you, or to identify several objects at the same time. But you cannot achieve that if you haven't played it in the game. So in that way, science was used to gamify the evolution that the player may experience in the game.
Kind of like distilled it to its most basic elements and made it, yeah.
Yes.
That's really cool. I really like that concept of just breaking down the genre of RPG or this kind of game and just distilling it to its most basic elements and still making it extremely fun without all the extra debuffs and buffs and all the extra stuff that you get in something like Far Cry and something.
Yeah, we're trying to make sense. And it's Patrice that had the idea one morning. Spontaneous mutation are also part of the evolution. You know, DNA that rearrange themselves in a new way. Mm-hmm. So we had the idea of creating what we call at the time a loot box baby. It's a baby that is born that bring you something new. And then I find a way to tie that up in the RPG to make sure that you cannot evolve past this point until you have the right mutation that will allow the species to go further in one direction. So once again, we took what we know in science term that was really happened in the past. I mean, mutation, and we gamify that system. So it's another example of how science has given us a lot of idea and inspiration for the game.
That's really, really cool. Really, really is. Let's see, next question. This might be a good one for Nick. What inspired a lot of the music choices that went to the game? A lot of African drums and all that. How did you get inspired to get that kind of style?
For the music, you said?
Yeah.
For the music, I was not that involved. For sure that in the beginning, the main art direction will influence where the music will go. So our goal was really to be kind of realistic, and I think that Jeff Boivin, also the owner of the company, who had a musical background, helped the compositor. We had a compositor who worked with us on the project. We had a small team of sound guys who also help us integrate all the elements. So we work with Game On. It's an outsourced company. So on that side, they really help us. They did a lot of tests. They worked really hard about delivering something that was unique. We wanted to avoid feeling like, because it's easy to have contemporary instrument that will feel too much contemporary. So at that point, it was really important also I remember also discussion about having too much voices within the music, because voices language was not invented yet. So we tried to kind of minimize that aspect also to avoid being like too tribal. So it was really that kind of line that the guys worked on. And I think at the end, it's really impressive. And when you play in the jungle, it's really something that is unique and that immerses you within the environment and within the gameplay. Also the sound feedback. I think that the design, they worked a lot with them also to give the signs and feedback. It's really important for the players. So on that point, I think that maybe Marc want to add something that is more related to game design.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, the basic direction for all the musical score was led by Patrice. He was the one talking with the composers, asking them to rework the music in some direction. The only thing I'm aware of during that process is, and Jeff Boivin did a lot of that. It's the concept of the music and the soundtrack have more layer the more you go out of your settlement with clan member. So if you go alone, there's only a basic layer of music that is played, but the more you are, or the higher you are in the trees in the jungle, for instance, the music is constantly and dynamically adjusting to what you're experiencing. So in a way, that helps create contrast and emotion. If you go out of your settlement with a full clan that are following you, you can hear the whole orchestra playing at the same time. So it had a feeling of power, of empowerment.
It's the soundtrack of the player, cool. In fact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the soundtrack of the player, so it's really good. Each player has his own soundtrack depending how he plays. And
yes,
that's really cool. That's something it's something that you don't really call attention to or notice, but as you're playing, it really does help feel the emotion. It's like that little icing on the cake. Even if you don't directly acknowledge or notice it, it kind of just adds to the emotion and feel. That's really cool. Let's see, we've got another question here. How much influence did you take from research into like modern great apes like bonobos, orangutans, chimps, gorillas? How much did that influence the behavior of our ancestral hominid that you wanted to put in the game?
The bonobos were probably the main one that we had a look at, because it's kind of related on a lot of ways to the our characters. But at the same time, we had a lot of also information about our own characters. For sure, they had some missing links, but yeah. No?
To be honest, at the beginning, we searched almost every great apes, trying to understand what are they capable of, what are they doing right now, in the jungle, making bed out of leaf, high on the trees, just to give us a first inspiration of what could we do in the game. But then
or not.
or not.
Because sometimes you realize that in fact they do things that they are copying the human. They saw the human doing something, so now they're doing it. But did they do it like 10 million years ago on that way? We're not sure. So those kind of elements were interesting to challenge ourselves about, do we put it in the games or not?
Because we always have to remember ourselves that we can see a chimpanzee doing that stuff today. We can see a bonobo doing that stuff today. But do they have learned it in the last million years? So it was never a clear indication of what we could do and to suggest that happened 10 million years ago. So we inspire ourselves from what we can see, but we were not that committed to create a replica of that in the past. Okay? One thing I remember that we have discussed very early on, and it was based on the bonobos' behaviors, is the question: why do this early hominid would not be at war with each others? And we have made a decision that we postulate that evolution can only occur, maybe not only occur, but evolution can occur more easiest with cooperation. And that kind of cooperation, we can see that now on the bonobo tribes. They use sex to diffuse tension in their society, so there's no reason to be angry at each other or to wage war on each other. Nick, do you remember those conversations?
Yeah, and one of the things that the difference, we've been inspired by those, but at the same time we are not apes in the games, and the main thing was to add that human aspect to them, to our characters, to hominid. And on that side, it was really something we wanted to make sure that we're not playing a ape, but a hominid. And yeah, they have like that little sparks of human in them that at the end of the evolution they will become us, and not a bonobo or a ape, something like that. Yeah, a gorilla. Yeah. Maybe some, but no.
Some of them are. Yeah. Well, if you look at like Palanthropus, that was basically a human gorilla. Just like with the big nutcracker man. That's actually a good. I got a question here. How did you decide which ancestor species did you want to put into the game? What genera or what species? Like, why didn't you add Palanthropus or Ardipithecus cabda or any other Australopithecine species?
I think that, like Marc-André said in the beginning, Pat had a big roadmap, and it was outlining already all those species, and frankly the roadmap is going really far, almost till today, so we had a roadmap that we can follow for the next games. And but for now it's really we stopped we realized what we're able to achieve, and I think on the design there's a lot of probably things where we stopped in 2 million years. Maybe Matt can add on that aspect of a decision.
No, I agree with you. Like I told you before, from the beginning, the roadmap was done by Patrice. He has done his own research, and as an executive decision in his artistic point of view, he has already decided that those were the species that should be put in the game. And to be honest, maybe it's my fault or my lack of curiosity. I never asked him why those and not those. So I cannot give you more information about that. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
What was interesting though, it's that during the 6 years process of doing the game, we saw a lot of new discovery, new research, new things that were happening around the world. So in the beginning, we're really focusing on the more like, the cradle of the world, located in Kenya. And after that, we had, they discovered something more in South Africa. Oh, it's interesting. So at the end, they were more like spread that we saw, but that's why in the game we don't give us an exact location. We want to keep it a little bit blurry on that side to make sure that we will still discover things that will kind of kill what we know today. And I think it's what is evolution is all about.
Well, like Homo naledi was discovered in that time, and that really shook up the evolutionary tree. So it's science is obviously, as kind of nature, it's always self-correcting and changing. So it's really cool that you try to reflect that in the game itself with all this cool genera and all the different species you picked. I think were really good picks to help try and portray the evolution of our earlier ape ancestors up to our Homo genus. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. How what wildlife did you want to add that you couldn't have the budget or the time for, like animals like Angolotherium, Dinotherium,
the giraffe.
Yeah,
the giraffe in the savannah.
Yeah,
because the neck was not fitting with the skeleton, so at the end we were not able to finish it and to do it. So it's those kind of little elements. It's not a real giraffe. It's the giraffe of 10 million years ago, but it was looking really similar. And it's a lot, and I'm pretty sure on the design aspect, we had a lot of sort of bats were taking you. Now they're more visual only because we didn't have the time to finish the feature. So, you go in a cavern and then, bats are taking you. So you just maybe lose a little bit of life. It was not a big thing. So the game can live without those elements, but it's little things that at the end we want always to put more in our games. And at the end, in the beginning, the game is really big and then we ship it like that. And it's always good because there's a lot of fat in our first ideas also. But sometimes it's the time, sometimes it's the technology, sometimes it really depends what finally go in or go out. It's maybe the priority, something we did first, and then it's really fitting in the game, and then we don't have the time to do the other iteration. And so, I don't know, Marc, if you have something that's really you wanted to put in the game as an animal, and you're like, I don't know. The sharks at the end.
No. I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question at the beginning. Can you?
What species like wildlife or flora?
Okay.
Like Dinotherium or Angolotherium or some other like Pliocene wildlife that didn't make it to the game.
I don't remember the name of. Do I have it here on one old design folder? It was a mix of a giant ostrich with a giant beak, like a big chicken, but that cannot fly. But that was a real badass predator.
Are you thinking of like a terror bird or something?
Something like that, yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to have that because in the game there's as my taste two not enough moment where you encounter something that is not alive right now. So, for instance, the big centipede that you meet once or twice in the game. I mean, a centipede that big does not exist anymore. So, but when you met him for the first time, it scared the shit of everybody, I think. But like Nick said, it was a question of time and budget and resources. And ultimately, we have to code the behavior of every one of them. So we had to make choice and
everything we're adding as its implications, and it's on all levels. So one of the things also that one of the character we didn't have in the game is the small white monkey we have in the beginning of in the trailer, in the intro. Yeah, it's not in the game. We wanted to like maybe he can throw rocks at you, something like that. Be a small clan, and then they work together. Something like having other monkeys, having apes. In fact, in the game, not hominids. It's something we wanted to have, and we didn't add the time to make it perfectly, and make sure it's a good addition to the game instead of just something that is broken. So yeah.
Well, obviously you got to get it out shipping eventually. You can't just constantly work on it. You got to get it out there.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
I think that's really cool, just to like the research and all the interesting species that lived in Africa during the Miocene. Like there were even bears. There were like Dinotherium, which was like a weird elephant with tusks coming out of its mouth. Really, really weird diversity of animals living in Africa.
Yes. It was really, in fact, we had more than we thought, but Earlis was bigger than that. So it's interesting to see that. Oh, okay, we had a lot in the end, but like you said, the pool was big and we were not able to put everyone in.
That's obviously more than fair enough, because games got to ship and it limited resources.
Yes.
So, there are some sort of like very minor inaccuracies in the game, like the giant centipede, as you mentioned, and something like the rock python having like an albino color, which is a captive morph that probably wouldn't have survived in the wild. Like, what made you kind of exaggerate those to try and like add more character or feel? Like, what inspired those choices to make it that little bit, not hyper real, but try to give a little bit more of your own design choice?
We have, the big bird in the beginning. I think that was all our research were pointing to more like the Brazil era. So in the areas, so on that side, it was okay. We found a couple of articles about they found one in North Africa and something like that. So there's a lot of things like that we were not sure that much, or we said, okay, let's do it because we need. If you go in the trees, if you go higher, we want you to be attacked, and they had probably something. It's maybe has not been yet discovered or things like that. So we found a little glimpse of an information that they found one in South Europe and something like that. So let's assume it and do it in the game. It's not a main character though, and so there's probably a couple of things like that. And as I said before, when we first started the game, things were still evolving in the research department, in the discovery around the world. So at some point you need to say, okay, let's assume what we've choose, and we cannot change everything. And yes, some subject had a lot of information, so we were pretty sure about a lot of information we were putting in the game. Other subject where sometimes it was a little bit more blurry, and we had to put our narrative aspect or design aspect to it to make it fit in the game. At the end, the goal is that the immersion is good. It doesn't look out of the box, and if it fit in the world, I think we say, okay, it can be good. We also had the 10-second Google law.
Yeah, it's 15 seconds Google. It's Patrice who told us that one day. Just like Nick said, we are aware that for professional anthropologists or archaeologists, there might be some inconsistency. But the question is, could it be believable from a larger crowd point of view? If we were to put mammoth in the game, obviously, even for everybody, that would not have made sense. But the rule was, if you are looking on Wiki to find an information and you cannot find the information to the contrary, what you're looking for, most of the people will stop looking. So the idea is if it can withstand this 15-20 second research on the net, so that information is in the realm of it's believable, it's plausible. Like Nick said, we know that the bird was in South Africa, in South America, but we also found information about bones from that same bird in North Africa. So it is believable that that bird, before being in North Africa, could have been in Kenya, which is not that far from a bird like that to travel. Okay, and maybe this one day in 5 years they will find bones of that bird in a jungle of Kenya or Ethiopia. I don't know. So it was a very delicate balance of, is it believable, but does the science can back it up a little bit? And then if we bend a little bit the reality, but not too much, without breaking the believable aspect of it, then go for it and do it. Because the idea is, if we can get people, let me start again. We do not pretend to be scientists, and we do not pretend to educate people on how the evolution actually occurs. We don't know. I wasn't there, and I'm not a scientist. But at the same time, if the game could have opened new ideas to people and tick their curiosity to read by themselves about those subjects, the information that they would find by themselves would not be that far from what we suggest in the game. And in a way, that is a good thing to get people interested in what might have happened in the last 10 million years. Do you see my point?
I definitely do.
Okay.
I think it's where we're doing a game. Also, it's the blend, the line, between the game, a serious game about a serious subject, but still a game where we want to have some kind of fun, and also the documentary. And this is where we like to play a little bit, but at the end, it's really about making sure that the information is credible, as Marc said.
Yeah, I mean, we know that evolution was not only did not only occur in neuronal network in the brain. I mean, we know it's not that. We do not evolve just because our brain got bigger, but we decide to depict that aspect in the game in a format of a brain just to gamify the evolution process. I mean, mutation gene that mutate is supposed to happen and to occur inside the body, not inside the brain. But you know what I mean? We know that it's not a neural system, but we did it anyway because we needed to gamify this process.
Oh, definitely. Because it is still a game first and foremost, and even if it's not the most hyper accurate, you still got to make some concessions to make the game playable. And because if we were really going through evolution day by day, we would be playing this game for the next 10 million years. There's some concessions that you have to make. Right?
Yeah, it's the same thing for the environment. It's really bigger than we expected, and I'm probably responsible for that. But,
you are.
We reacted, I thought, because at the end it gave you the feeling of exploration that you had to you had to do a journey to evolve. It's not like only the feeling that you have in the RPG. We wanted to give it also about the traveling they had to do, coming to the jungle, living to the ocean, and then probably having to choose between Europe, Eurasia, or those locations, this kind of spread from that. And we were not able to recreate the whole Africa. And as you said, we were still, we will never ship that game. But at the end, it's really what are the main locations they encountered throughout that journey. And then we create a jungle that is probably the main part of the game. And then you cross the savannah, some canyons. And if you look at the big geography on the map, it's that kind of map, more smaller in a miniature aspect that we did. So you have the feeling that you almost cross the continent, but only by walking. But even though the in the beginning of our production, we had no idea about the game. We had the idea about the games, but not that it will be as big. So yeah. But that aspect is really important, to have the feeling that you explore, that you evolve, and you're not evolving on the same kind of 1 meter square.
Because pretty much for all games, progression is probably the most important thing. Make you feel like you're getting somewhere and not just going around in a circle. And I think Ancestors did that in a really satisfying way. Like the gratification of finding something new or looking in the new environment, I think that in itself really just makes the progression feel more worth it. It's really being rewarded for thinking and really trying to figure out different tools and animals and how to hunt things. Like
it was a very hard balance to find, because we were constantly battling between it's gonna be too hard, but then we realized that if we tell the player how to play the game like every other game do right now, you take out, by doing so, you take out the pleasure of discovering it by yourself. And since we've made a game about evolution and finding stuff on your own, that implied to not tutorialize a lot the game. But it was a very, very hard balance to find. And I think we achieved that. I think that the gratification that the player experience when he finds something new for the first time, I think it's what we have done best in the game to suggest that could have been the feeling that this hominid 5 million years ago felt when he discovered the same thing. You know, so there's I think a symbiosis between the player and what actually might have happened in the history of man. So, but that's why on the other end of the spectrum, the people find it very hard at the beginning, because we do not help you that much to grasp that game. You know,
You have to learn to live.
yeah, and dying is part of the process.
And yeah.
Well, dying's always a part of evolution. It's what weeds out the weaker animals from the population. I really loved the progression aspect. I thought that was done. Like, even I've played like 2 or 3 different playthroughs of the game, and even then you're still finding something new. You always find something new in a playthrough. Even if you've done it like 5 or 6 playthroughs, you always find something new. It really is amazing.
That was part
Yeah, we love to play.
No, go ahead, Nick.
But I know that we love to play games like Civilization, where you have to challenge yourself and restarting a game and then restarting it to become better at your game. In fact, I think on the design aspect, Pat is a Civilization player, and I think this is kind of in the DNA of the game a little bit. You know, to not just enjoy one ride, an easy ride. It's really about, you know, learning the game a little bit and then really enjoying it for what it is.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think one of the strongest idea of the game was to not gate it. By gate it, I'm going to give you an example. We could have decided, for instance, that there will be no basalt or no basalt or obsidian before you reach the woodland, for instance. And at the same time, granite will not be allowed to be used to craft a stick. So that would have been a gate. So until you reach the woodland, no sharp stick. So it's would have made making a kill a lot harder. But instead, we decided to put all the tools from the beginning there, and the only gate, we shift the pressure of finding all the system to the player. So it was up to him to evolve at his own speed. So that decision was very interesting, because it allowed after that the game to be played in so different ways for different person. People could play the game in 5, 6, 7 different ways and still have a great experience. So I think it was very interesting to, from a design standpoint, to create that kind of system.
Kind of just open it up to everyone, not having mechanical gates, just the gates of the knowledge of the player. I think that's like a really cool concept. Just making sure that let the player figure it out.
Yes. We add a few gates. I mean, unless you activate your first neuron on the reflex branch, you don't have the ability to switch end, so you cannot craft. But it was the first gift you get when you activate first that reflex branch. Bipedalism was also a gate, but that gate was not stopping the player to do anything more specific action. Bipedalism, in fact, just improve, for instance, endurance. When you walk, you lose less energy. That also open up the abilities to improve your swimming abilities. And suddenly, when you climb a rock wall, it take less energy. So it was not a gate per se. It was just a moment where the player can start to improve a new aspect of his physiology or his abilities.
Yeah, just kind of like have that ability unlocks more abilities, not like a gate in terms of you can't learn all this stuff and you can't play until you learn this. It's kind of just you naturally kind of learn, oh, I can walk on my two legs now, and then I can go on and learn the other things.
I think the only gate that's still there right now, it's the ability to carry stuff with your two hands. Unless you unlock the specific neuron, you cannot do that. I think it's the only one. I'm not sure.
Seems to be.
Yes.
Let's see another questions. Have you looked at like who did you look at for the designs of a lot of the animals and the people in the game? Like there's a lot of paleo artists that I like to use for reference, like Mauricio Anton and the Kenneth brothers or Tom Bjorklund, who do a lot of paintings of these extinct species. Who did you look for, and what did you find for inspiration for the designs that you put in the game?
I have no names like that, but we had so many books and we did so many reference research that we gathered on our network that at the end, who was really wanted in 3D, kind of lose a little bit that aspect of painting or things. And what we wanted to do is also to sometimes to do a blend maybe of all those illustrations that we had, all those information. I think it's the same thing we did on a lot of aspects in the game for the environment, for example. So it's not exactly, okay, let's take this artist and then recreate what he did and kind of add his visual direction within our character or something like that. But yes, a lot of scientists, artists, or something like that, they really did a good job. We talked to some. I have no names like here now, but it's really about. We did a lot of research, but the fact is we had a lot of information. Often it was kind of the same kind, the same image was often coming in all the research we did. Like I said, some subject was really more like filled within information, and others it was like, oh my god, they just found a bone. So we had to extrapolate, and you have to also take in consideration all the reading you're doing. A lot of illustration also are not fitting within the environment if you look at the characters. So is it true? Is it because, like Marc-André said in the beginning, we were not there? I'm not saying that we had the truth at all. And so at the end, we kind of we tried to avoid doing something really specific about an artist, but more doing a blend of all the research and doing it in 3D and then adding behavior to that, animations, and then what is his main role within the game? Is it a predator? Is it a prey? And then it was more defining what it was in the game than recreating something exactly as from a reference.
Well, the animals in the game have really just got to serve a purpose of being either food or an enemy. They didn't really need to be too extreme and extravagant. I've got one last question. I just don't want to let this get too much more than an hour or so. I'll just put this one last question. Are there any plans in the future of this game to update things like maps, objectives, AI, or what else do you want to plan for the future updates for Ancestors, especially when it's now coming to Steam in August?
Yeah, like we said, yeah, we still we had the last update on it lately, so till the release it will be that, and we still, like I said before, and Marc-André said, we have a big roadmap for the IP itself, for the Ancestors IP, that we can do games maybe till today at some point about the evolution. It's really interesting where we can go with this. We did a lot of first plan, but for now we are a small team and we're working on a new IP, so our focus is really on that one. But we never know. It's really something that is really open because we are happy about the success, about the feedback we have. The game, Marc-André can talk a little bit more about that, but we have a lot of design that has been, whatever not finished, has been left. We know what we want to add. We have already concept art from, the roadmap I was talking to you about. Mm-hmm. So there's still a lot of things that can be done. But presently, as a small team, our energy is really on our new IP, and then we will see. Really, it's a door that is really cool if we open it one day.
Yeah, and I might add that I spent the last 5 years of my life in that world, thinking about stuff that I would like to do, stuff I would like to see in the game. Like Nick said, you have no idea how much stuff I have designed that are not in the game. So the day the day that we'll decide to do more stuff, there's a lot of things that we already know, or maybe not for sure, but we know the direction we want or we would like to go. And from that, with all the players' feedback, all the players that have played our game and write to us, even on Discord or Reddit, we are very connected to what excites player about our game. And for sure, if there's something up next, it will be connected to all the stuff that we would like to do and all the stuff that people would like to see in the game to give a better experience, for sure. But like Nick said, for now we're focusing on the Steam release, and it's not my place to tell you what could be the plan for content update or not.
That's definitely more than fair enough. But yeah, there was really nice talking to you guys. I really enjoyed this interview and really learning about this game. I've got to say, Ancestors was definitely one of my most favorite games of the past few years, just because being like a science nut and also being really into like good gameplay, that it just like tugged on my heartstrings almost. I really enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed talking to you guys, and I really hope that wish you all the best and with this new IP. Is it 1666 Amsterdam, or is this a completely new IP? Because I remember hearing Patrice had a big legal battle with Ubisoft about Amsterdam.
That he won, I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he won it.
Yes. Yeah, of course he won.
Yeah, he won it.
Good on him.
Okay, I'm going to rewind the tape and going to play it. I'm sorry, I understand the question, but it's really not my place to say right now.
So I'm
Without due respect, sir.
That's more than okay. I'll just keep my mouth shut.
It's okay. You have to ask. It's okay.
It's not like I can read minds. But yeah, I really hope you guys hope you guys do your best and everyone's well over in Montreal, especially with this pandemic happening.
Yes.
Yeah, I really wish you guys.
We're doing well. Yeah, you too. I hope everything is good there.
Yeah, we've actually been doing really well over here.
The curve is not flattened yet, but we're on it. We're on it.
We'll get there.
Yes. Yeah, we'll get there for sure. We hope.
I think I'll just end the video here. So, if you guys really enjoyed this interview, and you guys can go to the Discord the Panache Digital Games Discord, and I'll put links to all the social medias and such if you want to go follow Ancestors and really give them a shout out, because it is a really good game, and really thank Mark and Nick for coming for these interviews. And yeah, hopefully you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye. We'll say bye-bye.
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 Bye.
Take care.